Hey everybody, Cliff again. Episode 22, Unit 22 of our Combat Boot Camp series. Today I want to talk to you about prisoners and guards and some of the complexities therein. I feel like this is sort of an underappreciated element of the game. Most people don't think about taking prisoners, it just sort of happens, and it's my way of thinking that's sort of a tactical mistake. We'll talk about that in tactics. After this one, our next 3 units are going to have to do with vehicles and anti-vehicle weapons, complexities therein. And then we'll get to tactics and wrap this series up shortly thereafter. But be that as it may, this is following on from our discussion about things like berserk and routing. Routing directly can lead to taking prisoners. The way you take prisoners is you have a routing soldier. So let's say Soldat Summer here is routing. And let's put Butterman next door. And let's give him an evade order. Any move order that allows a good order soldier that has a morale state of shaken or better to enter into a hex that contains only an opposing soldier with a rout, in this case Summer, results in the routing soldier surrendering. Routing will go up 1 to shaken. The evade order is lost, and he will become a guard, Alt 7. For the rest of this turn, Butterman would be considered to have no order. So if he's shot at, use the no order column. So you generally want to plan things out so that you're taking these prisoners well in some cover, so that you're not just sitting out in the middle of the field with your pants down getting shot at. Doing this in the middle of the field like this is not necessarily a good idea. Sometimes you have to do it. In subsequent turns, Butterman can be given various orders. You don't have to stay there. You can get an evade order if neither you nor your prisoner has a bad wound. If you have a bad wound, the best you can do is sneak. Other orders that can be given are rally, plan, or hide. Those are your orders. Sneak, evade, rally, plan, or hide that you get. Now the enemy can also take prisoners. So if Lewis here was routing, give him a rout, and Walter here even had a sneak, and Walter snuck in there. Snuck, is that a word? He'd lose that order. Come on. We'll lose that order. He becomes a guard, and our morale goes up to shaken. At this point, if he can, Walter would be given evade orders automatically. Now, if either he or his prisoner have a bad wound, he'd be given a sneak order, and he would always use the route direction off of the order cards. So guards move in route direction, trying to take their prisoners back home with them. They will move by evade by default, and if they can't evade, they will sneak. That's all guards do. In a melee hex, when people are doing close combat, it is not legal to shoot into those hexes. You can't shoot into a melee, but you can shoot into a guarded hex. So if Walter had captured Lewis here, and Brubaker was sitting here, and Brubaker had an aim fire, he could shoot into that hex and try to pick off the guard. Couple of limitations here. In order to get a good shot, the target hex must be 5 hexes or less away. At more than 5 hexes, you can shoot in there, but you're not sure who you're going to shoot. You have to roll randomly to see who gets shot at. Could be the guard, could be the prisoner. But under 5 you can pick. So I can pick the guard here because it range is 2. And you can also only do this with a single shot weapon. So if you have an M3 grease gun, you cannot shoot in there because you might just spray your buddy, and that wouldn't be good. So if you have a Tommy gun, you can shoot at a rate of 1. If you have a regular old M1, you can fire in there with your rifle, with your Garand. He's got a Garand, he can fire in there. He's got a weapon skill of 4, 5 for range, and the guard, there is no order in a field. You look that up, take your shot. Likewise, the enemy can shoot into your guarded hexes with the same limitations. So like Soldat Braun down here could fire over here, or up here rather, at this guard. He has LOS. Now, if I shot in here and I managed to get a light wound on him, let's say I got a light wound, and he rolled a 9 on his morale check, he goes down 3. That goes from normal to cautious to shaken to routed. At that point, he's routed. If he's in the hex with a good order soldier, which he is now, Lewis will now become the guard, and he will be the prisoner. So it's possible to flip ownership. If you've got a soldier here and another soldier here, and that one is routing, so you got 2 soldiers together in the same hex. One's routing, one's not. Get rid of this. And Lewis enters that hex. Now you've got Lewis with a routing soldier and a non-routing soldier. That routing soldier does not surrender. Not if he's got a buddy. Instead, what happens is that route goes up to shaken and you enter into melee. That'd be under other orders, right? Where's melee at again? Other. Status. I can never remember without my shortcuts. Reload, search, rally, down. Okay, what if I just do a duck back? Can I turn that into a melee? Hide. Nope. Where's my melee order? Anyway, it becomes a melee. It's going to bother me now. Morale. Reload. Friendly. There it is, for whatever good it does. That was painful. I got to figure out how to do that better. Anyway, you know what I mean. Alright, so if you enter into a hex that has a routing soldier with a normal soldier, the route becomes shaken, and you enter into melee, and they both attack you. Now, if I had a prisoner, this is a point that I'm not so clear on. I've been trying to get clarity online. Let's say I have a guard here on a prisoner. He's shaken, and I've also got, get rid of these guys, a guy here who is now routing. Let's take him down 1. He's routing. And I've got a guard with a guy who's shaken, who's my prisoner. If I move on to him, technically the routing guy's in the hex with a non-routing soldier, and he ought to become shaken and they should both enter into melee, but that just does not seem right because the first guy was already under guard. I've got an M1 loaded and aiming at him, and we enter another hex with a guy who's ready to surrender. It seems to me the second guy should just surrender, and since the first one was a prisoner and already disarmed, he's not going to jump up and try anything crazy. So I say, in my world, Ross can correct me if I'm wrong here, it just feels right to me thematically that in this case, this second route should also go up to shaken, and now I should have 2 prisoners there. And then I'm guarding 2 prisoners. But if I'd entered into a hex that had a good order soldier and a routing soldier, I'd obviously be in melee, and then there would be 3 fighting against me. So that's really all there is to taking prisoners. You move a good order soldier into a hex with only a routing soldier. Or I guess if you had multiple routing soldiers, you could capture them simultaneously. I've never done that. They become shaken, you get guard status. For that rest of that turn, you have no order. You can be shot at by other soldiers. They can pick their target. If it's 5 hexes or less, they can only use single shot weapons, so an MG42 can't hose you down. And they're assault rifles, if you have some of those pastel bastards. They can't hose you down. Has to be a single shot weapon. A sniper could take you out. That'd be bad. If the guard becomes routing, the situation flips. The prisoner becomes the guard becomes the prisoner. You can only do certain move orders. Evade is the fastest you can move, and that's only if you only have light wounds or less. After that you have to sneak. You can also do rally or hide. Yeah, and that's basically it. Or plan, I guess. If you have a leader, you could plan with a soldier as a prisoner. Taking prisoners will generate a lot of points for you. If you look at most of the victory tables, well, all of the victory tables, let me pull one up. You look at the points. To take a regular prisoner is 3 victory points. To kill one is 1, so they're 3 times as valuable. A NCO, 4 points versus 2, so an NCO is twice as valuable as a prisoner. And as officer is 5 points versus 3, so almost double. But an officer could also give you papers, and papers are worth 5. So theoretically, an enemy officer prisoner could give you 5. Papers are worth 3, I guess, 8 victory points if you get papers off of an officer as a prisoner. So you get 8 victory points versus just 3 for killing them, almost triple again. So Ross has highly incentivized taking prisoners, and it becomes a viable strategy that we'll talk about when I get to tactics in Unit 26. That's it in a nutshell. We're going to move off to vehicles next. Oh boy. We'll start with jeeps, trucks, and half-tracks because they're a little simpler. Then we'll add in the armor, then the light anti-tank weapons. And that will be most of the rules. And thereafter, we've just got a few other topics to talk about that aren't really rules, but worth talking about in our boot camp series. I hope you enjoy this, and I will talk to you guys next time.